What's up, guys? John Sonnemas here from simpleprogrammer.com, and today I want to talk to you about T-shaped skills development. Okay, maybe you've heard about this before. Maybe you've heard the concept of T-shaped knowledge, but maybe you don't quite understand what that means. You're throwing that word around a little bit. Okay, I got you there. All right, or maybe you got it. Maybe you got it. All right, maybe I'm underestimating you, but I still want to talk about this subject, and I want to talk about how to actually implement this and why this is extremely valuable in building your brand as a developer and marketing yourself in order to get better opportunities. If you want to get the best opportunities, you want to get those really high-paying jobs, if you want to get those speaking gigs, if you want to be invited to speak at events, maybe even write a book, or you want to become somewhat famous in the developer industry, I'm going to tell you how to do this. And one of the keys is having this T-shaped knowledge. So first of all, what is T-shaped knowledge? Right? Well, it basically means that you have a broad set of skills you can imagine, and then you go deep into one thing. So it kind of makes a T. That's it, or it also does this, right? Depending on how you invert it, is either down or up. So I like to say that you've got FU skills, but T-shaped knowledge, that I think that's a little bit more popular. So anyway, so let's talk about what that actually looks like, right? So what it looks like is you develop a decent base, right? So you become a good software developer. Maybe you have a couple of different programming languages that you understand, some different technologies, some back-end stuff, some different databases, some front-end architecture, whatever, some design patterns, right? You've got a good broad base of different things that you understand how to do. Maybe you understand some CI, and you can do continuous deployment, right? CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment, right? Maybe you've got some skills in test-driven development or writing unit tests, right? So maybe you've got kind of a broad set of skills, which is good. It's good to have that, okay? But you pick one specific thing that you're going to go deep into, right? So let me give you an example from my own past, right? Because you can change this at times, right? So I developed a pretty broad base. I've probably programmed in 15 different languages, all different technologies, embedded systems, mobile systems, Windows CE, .NET, Java, just about anything that you can think of, web development, mobile apps. So I've got a pretty broad set of skills. But at one point in my career, what I decided to do was I decided to focus on automation, right? Specifically, I decided to go deep into creating automation frameworks with Selenium. All right. Now, when I did this, what I ended up doing was I ended up giving some talks. You can find them out on the internet. Some talks where I talked about test-driven development and really not even test-driven development, but creating test automation frameworks using Selenium. There was some test-driven development part of this, but my main focus was just learning how to best create these test automations so that you could automate a browser, right? And at this time, this was something that was relatively new. There wasn't a lot of people that were doing this, and that skill set was high in demand. And so I gave some talks about this. I published some YouTube videos about this. I sort of created a brand for myself around this. I was a test automation expert with Selenium. And when I did this, what ended up happening was that I started getting all of these consulting gigs, right? So I started getting consulting gigs that normally at this point in my career, I was billing around about $100 an hour for my consulting time. But as I started getting all of these requests for my time, I started raising my rate. I got to the point where I was charging $350, $400 an hour to help people write test frameworks. It was crazy. I didn't expect to ever bill that rate. But the way that I was able to do that was that because I had that knowledge, that deep knowledge in one area, right? And so you've probably heard me talk about specialization, and this is really just another method of specialization. But the important thing to do is that you want to start off building a broad base, right? And a lot of you have that, but then you want to develop these T-shaped knowledge areas, right? So you want to go deep into multiple areas. And so what's the practical application of this? Well, if you're looking to really reach the top level of developers, right? If you're looking to really become one of those developers that is known by name, okay, that gets invited to speak at conferences, that gets job offers handed to them instead of them having to go out and try to find jobs. If you want to become one of those developers that is considered a thought leader, you've got to pick some kind of specialization. You've got to take that broad knowledge that you have, and you got to pick one area and you got to go deep on it. And you don't even have to have that expertise now, but what you have to do is you have to choose and pick some area, and then you're going to go deep on that, and you're going to build a brand based on that. Now, that's something that I've been helping developers do for the last 12 years. I've helped some of the biggest brands on the internet, developer brands, to grow their brands and to make a lot of money and to get a lot better jobs and and consulting opportunities, all of those things, speak on stages, right? If you, any of those things that you want to do, I can help you do that. I've got a link down below. If you want to click that, I started something that I call the Rockstar Developer University, which is all focused on building your brand as a software developer. So if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, if you want to learn more about this T-shaped knowledge and you want some help in figuring out exactly what should your niche be, how should you specialize, click the link down below and we'll jump on a call and talk about it.